All right. Good morning. Good morning. Happy November. It is November 3rd, Tuesday. Welcome to the Mind Flex call. This is going to be the third and final part of the journaling unit or journaling lesson. Um, so I hope you've enjoyed some of the practical stuff and also found some questions or prompts that you still, you know, wonder about and that you can still write about and journal about. And of course, I'm always here as well to chat. So don't be afraid to reach out if you do have more questions. But let's jump in. We've given a few minutes for people to show up. Now, I was thinking about how I wanted this call to go and battling with some questions I had about journaling, about the unit, about the teaching of this behavior, why it's valuable, and why even do it? Why share it with the group here like it's something that I think people should be investing time in? What is its practical application and use? Why should you even care? Why do I care? And I was trying to think back to stories that I could tell as well about experiences where journaling has played a part in my in the resulting outcome of that experience. And I do have a couple stories for you, but I also have some questions. And I'll start with the bottom line first. And this is what we call TLDR. TLDR. It's a borrowed theme from actually a Tim Ferriss show, and it stands for Too Lazy Didn't Read. So to answer that question, why you should even care, it's because journaling at the end of the day lets you get stressful shit out of your head and your body. It lets you get stressful shit out of your head and your body. Stress is the number one cause of basically all negative outcomes. And I'm not using failure on purpose here because there is no result that is a failure. But there is a result that isn't in alignment with what your desired outcome is. So stress is the result of all outcomes that don't align with your ideal outcome. Stress is the result of your head and your gut or your body being in misalignment or being in disagreement. There's a push and pull relationship between what your head said you should do and what your heart or your gut feels that you should do. And this is something that's totally innate to humans, to me, to you, to all of us. We have gut feelings about things, but we are also part of the larger social conditioning that's happening. And that social conditioning or social engineering makes us want, it makes us desire, it makes us think about things. And journaling helps clarify what it is that is causing that stress. If you don't have an outlet for those things, then one day may go by, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, And you may not feel any more or less at a loss for not doing this, not using a behavior like this. But 10 years down the road, if you could look back and you say that you invested so much time in this sort of behavior, how much more clear would you be thinking? All that accumulated time, how much? I guarantee you'd be clearer. I guarantee that you'd have a more refined vision ahead of you. I guarantee you'd be better at managing stress. I guarantee you'd be a more successful, more disciplined, more driven, more focused, more kind, more genuine, more authentic version of yourself. And totally fair, too, is that I should acknowledge journaling is, in fact, just one behavior, one set of disciplined behavior over the course of a long period of time that can result in such sort of clarity. And I do not want you to think that it's the only behavior that can result in that sort of clarity. So, my question to you is, what behaviors are you supplementing in life and learning that will result in clarity? Ultimately, journaling should give you energy. It should be bringing you closer to a flow state. But it doesn't have to be journaling that does that. It's one of the tools I've chosen to share. And I will continue to stack onto that. Sharing prompts, sharing my personal stories and experiences, and just continuing to support the idea that we need behaviors like journaling, like meditation, like reflection. So I'm going to share some of the questions that I was thinking of as I was brainstorming for this call. Some of the stuff that a long time invested in this practice will help you see more clearly. The first is, do you know what your vision is? I, having done some very basic typology work, now know that I am what's called an ENTP genius type, an ENTP in the Myers-Briggs Personality Classification System, ENTP. And I am an innovator. I look into the future, look for connections and patterns, and try to extrapolate what could be. And this is all detailed in my vision. And my vision is something I visit daily. I think about daily. I read into, I reflect on, I write about daily in my journal. And it is only because I do this daily that I know what that vision is. And trust me, I don't fucking know what the next 10 years are going to be like for sure. I'm not trying to convince you that I can tell the future or you could be able to tell. Just use it practically. And if you watch this and think to yourself, I don't actually know what my vision is, then this might be a fantastic tool or prompt to start giving direction to some of your journaling work. Number 2, do you know what your values are? Integrity, authenticity, love, kindness, and more. Freedom. It doesn't have to be 5 core values, but when you write about these things, you will naturally branch out from each one and begin to paint a picture of what those values mean to you. You will naturally begin to recall times where you have both made decisions that support and align with your values and made decisions that negatively impact or sort of go against your values. By also doing this, you will become less of a condescending person. Less of a condescending person. You won't be so superior acting, as in forcing your values onto others, but rather sharing your truth, which I know is very important to me, and I know that I've connected with each one of the people in this program to some degree, and I feel confident in saying as well that sharing the truth is something we all have in common, sharing our version of the truth, but not forcing that onto others. There's a careful difference there. The other thing I've been reading about lately that this, just thinking about lately, that this is related to is the term cognitive dissonance, which is important because your values, beliefs, and attitude about you, about your life, about your values and beliefs should guide your decision making. And when your decision making does not reflect those values, you get a sort of psychological and physiological stress response. And that stress response is cognitive dissonance. Your body is stressed the fuck out because you're not doing stuff that aligns with your values. Unfortunately, don't have a practice like this. If you don't have a practice like this, you may not even know that's occurring, and you may learn to live with cognitive dissonance and just perpetually have that rain cloud over your head, always keeping you in a shit mood, always keeping you from being happy, always keeping you from really living in and enjoying the moment. The other stuff, and this just gets deeper, but it's super valuable, is do you avoid parts of yourself? And do you avoid them out of fear? I know from personal experience that I sure as hell did avoid parts of myself, and I still do. I think that it's likely part of the human condition. I can't chalk it up to that with 100% confidence and say, well, I'm human, so I don't have to worry about it. But I can say that it is most likely always going to be there. There's always going to be multiple versions of the self, and those multiple versions are not all going to be on the same page. It's not really the best way to describe it. Those versions are not always going to be nice to each other, really. So if you are journaling, you have the opportunity to let speak each one of those versions of yourself. And those versions of you need to speak. They need to come out. The kid, the selfish you, the selfless you, the angry version of you. I know I did some work on prompts around anger, and you can see those on my Insta profile, but I was an angry person and I avoided this sort of underlying um, trend in my behavior because I didn't want to lose things that I thought I valued. And the takeaway is that usually you dig into something and you think something, but you in fact don't think it, and you were stressing about something that doesn't necessarily mean anything to you. Final one, um, what do you say about yourself? Perhaps the most important thing. What do you say about yourself? Your journal is a reflection of how you speak to yourself. And speaking to yourself, you are, in fact, the very first person to acknowledge your fears, to acknowledge your desires, to acknowledge your progress, your good work, your bad work. You are your own judge, your own best and worst critic. And if you are, let's say, speaking to yourself as if you were a failure, a waste, um, a joke, weak, incapable, undeserving, and let's say angry, what do you think's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen when you speak to yourself that way? The result is that you become that person. That's what it seems like to me. I'm not going to say that I'm a psychologist. I know this stuff is fact, but when you think something, you are creating connections where connections did not previously exist. And the more you think it, the greater the more well established that connection becomes. And your brain, your body, you are a animal of routine. You are someone, I am someone, I'll speak for myself, I am someone that relies on unconscious behavior. We are all this way. So that when you create thought patterns, whatever they may be, you become that person. And this is what I want to leave you with. Yes, the TLDR is get that stressful shit out of your head. And it's really just realize that you're doing that. And then you can literally step out of that and step into something new that you are consciously creating. That conscious creation leads to unconscious execution. And that's where we want to be, unconscious execution of the things, the goals, the actions that align us with our truest, deepest, most meaningful values and beliefs. So, how do you speak to yourself? Do you avoid yourself? Do you know what your values are? And do you know what your vision is? This is it. We're going to leave it there. I hope that you've enjoyed some of these thoughts and really just rants around journaling, about journaling, the stuff that I like about this practice. Disclaimer, I'm imperfect, you're imperfect. Don't watch this and expect to get 365 days in a row of perfect journaling done. There is no such thing. Put a pen to paper and write. Let me know if you have questions, everybody. We will leave it at that. Take care. Peace and love. See you in the next one.